On a quiet afternoon, a kaiju attacks the city, terrorizing everyone. In this universe, it's common for these giant creatures to appear from time to time. Then a specialized troop from the defense forces appears, battling the creature with high-level weapons and tactics, and they end up eliminating the big beast, and the team is cheered by the people of the city. When this battle ends, we are introduced to a cleaning crew who are working diligently to dispose of the guts and remains of the downed kaiju. A man named Kafka is an excellent janitor with years of experience. He's so experienced that he even knows about the acidic organs of kaijus, avoiding serious accidents. And Kafka has a memory with the current leader of the specialized troop, Mina Ashiro. When they were children, they promised to become kaiju exterminators. She managed to fulfill her promise, while our protagonist became a salaried adult with little life perspective. Then an intern was assigned under Kafka's responsibility. A young man named Rino Ikikawa, who, like the protagonist, is trying to join the defense force. Our protagonist gave up because of the age limit to join the corporation, and Ikikawa thinks he's a loser for giving up on that dream. During a long day of work, Ikikawa realizes that Kafka is very well recognized and praised in the cleaning team, and he is very grateful for his help, because without him, he would have had a hard time cleaning the kaiju. And then he tells the protagonist that the age limit has been increased and that he should try again. At that moment, they are attacked by a smaller kaiju which looks like a giant spider, and this creature ends up chasing Ikikawa, but Kafka distracts it and acts as bait to be pursued. He enters through the debris of the previous battle, but the kaiju attacks him. Even though he tries to fight it with an iron pipe, our protagonist is attacked in the chest and is almost devoured, but ends up being saved by Ikikawa, who just runs with him, believing that if he fled he wouldn't be worthy of joining the defense force. When it seemed like it was all over for the two of them, a white tiger appears helping them. The tiger attacks the kaiju and the kaiju's head is blown up by a mine. And this mine is none other than the captain of the 3rd Anti-Kaiju Division. The two are rescued and taken to a hospital, and Ikikawa tries to convince Kafka to join the special forces and regain his will to join the battalion. But then while the two are talking, the protagonist is surprised by a bizarre insect that enters his mouth and transforms him into a kaiju. Ikikawa tries to save him and realizes that he is a monster. And in fact, it's his new friend Kafka. They are confused by the situation, how this was possible. Out of nowhere, the guy turned into a kaiju. And at that moment, they are spotted by an elderly man who reports the presence of the kaiju in the hospital. The old man even faints and falls stiffly to the ground. Then the protagonist goes to try to help him but ends up breaking through the walls. He tries to be friendly and nice to people but fails miserably. To solve this, he tries to escape through the window, but his new powers made him so strong that he goes around destroying walls. He goes around smashing everything in his path. Ikikawa tries to help him, but his new body has functions that even he doesn't know how to control. And while they are running outside the hospital, Ikikawa takes a look back and he has turned into a strange monster. But he manages to return to normal. Normal in quotation marks, right? Because he's still a kaiju. And then a liquid starts gushing from his chest, and they have to get out of there quickly because he's a kaiju and the special forces hunt kaiju. So if they find him, they'll want to take him down. Then our protagonist pauses like this and he recognizes the coming of a kaiju even before it is detected by the defense forces. At the attack site, a mother and daughter are victims of the debris and are spotted by the kaiju. But our protagonist appears, punching them, saving the two. He is amazed by his strength, sending the kaiju flying. Then the spider kaiju tries to attack them again, but the protagonist uses an energized punch, making the monster explode in a rain of ketchup. Then he takes a look back and the child is crying, afraid of him. And when he decides to leave, the child thanks him, which makes him remember Mina once again, the girl from his childhood who swore to join the defense force with him. With this determination, he manages to return to normal. After everything is resolved, Mina and her troop arrive at the scene, seeing several debris from the battle. And the child asks that the good kaiju not be hurt. 3 months pass since the incident. The defense forces cannot find Kafka's kaiju version, which was nicknamed Kaiju number 8. Ikikawa receives the approval document for the first phase of the Special Forces test and takes it to Kafka, which makes him very happy, but he still can't control his powers correctly. The two prepare, because in 10 days the second phase will begin. Still in the parking lot of the test site, they encounter a blonde girl who asks the protagonist to move his car, precisely because she wants his spot. The girl is very pushy and he refuses, as there are many places for her to park, right? So she uses her abilities to lift the van to another spot using only her hands. She introduces herself as Kikoru Shinomiya, and ends up noticing that the protagonist smells like kaiju. Ikikawa talks nonsense, saying that they work on the cleaning team, which is why they have that smell. Then Kafka goes and lifts the car also with his own hands. And Ikikawa goes crazy, right? He's spoiling his disguise. Basically, our protagonist transformed his hand into a kaiju, that's why he was able to lift the van, but Ikikawa gets furious and scolds him. If the special forces discover that he is a kaiju, there will be trouble. And now they are close to the next test. And it turns out it will be a physical test. And Kafka doesn't use his ability, so the special force doesn't discover that he is a kaiju. In this, only with his willpower, he is among the last. The guy was terrible at the test, in fact the worst of all. But he is congratulated by his friend for not using his powers. In the final test, they need to neutralize live kaijus of various sizes and shapes that will be on site. For this, they will use suits that release extra power. These suits were made from kaiju carcasses. That's right, from the very kaijus they killed. And these armors greatly increase their combat power. But to unleash this power, they needed to calculate the suit's total power because each one could reach a different percentage. Most talented young people could reach a base of 15%, some more than that and some less than that. Shinomiya unlocks 46% of the suit, which leaves her with the power level of a squad leader, and Ikikawa only gets 8%, but the supervisor says that's a lot, especially since the first time someone uses the suit this is rare. Not reaching 0, he already had a good chance of passing the test. And guess what, my friend, our protagonist doesn't even reach 10%. He can't even get out of 0%, making his effort the laughing stock of everyone. And Shinomiya is a little curious, right? Because she saw him using his strength lifting the car, and she wonders why he didn't use that power now. Then the test begins and Shinomiya demonstrates incredible abilities running up walls, easily eliminating some kaijus, being guided by the best in the class. Ikikawa tries to help our protagonist, who can barely carry the equipment without the help of the suit. Then the two join forces and provide tactical support. Kafka recognizes the tail-shelled kaijus, precisely because in his old job he dismembered parts of these creatures to clean the streets. So he had full knowledge of the kaiju's bodies. With that, he can see that a kaiju has a weakness to sound and the weak point is in their bellies. He throws a stun grenade and teaches one of the best shooters that they need to hit, eliminating the targets. However, he ends up being attacked by another and is alone. And with that, he cannot react, breaking his leg and falling. When he is about to be eliminated, he is saved by Shinomiya, who ends up humiliating him, eliminating the other kaijus before the best students. She stands out completely on the battlefield. Then the examiner recommends that he drop out of the test. But he refuses to give up, even knowing that he is called 0%. Even humiliated, he has a good reason to pass this test, so he gets up and even without hope of succeeding with his willpower, he ends up releasing a small percentage of the suit, which surprises the entire monitoring team. With that, he asks Kafka to go his own way because he didn't want to delay him. However, his companion reaches out to him and commits to staying in support with his friend. With this difficulty, the two join forces, and even with a lot of shame, Ikikawa carries Kafka on his back, being his leg so that the protagonist uses his knowledge to eliminate the kaiju. While Shinomiya and the three best students are competing to see who will kill the main kaiju of the test, Shinomiya advances alone against several kaijus, eliminating them alone, leaving the other students speechless watching. She demonstrates other strategic abilities and solos a good number of them, until she finds the final kaiju. She throws a smoke grenade to distract it and attacks by shooting into its mouth, eliminating it completely. The test is finalized and Shinomiya's performance is perfect, so much so that there were few casualties and dropouts. The moment she was about to leave the test, she is surprised by an attack from behind. And then the kaiju that attacks her appears. It is the size of a human. And it resurrects all the kaijus that were killed, even the large kaiju that Shinomiya had defeated. Shinomiya focused all her shield on her heart, and even so the attack was so strong that she was about to lose her heart. And this humanoid kaiju is intelligent, it can even speak, which leaves Shinomiya in shock. Shinomiya manages to have her skin regenerated, and with that she tries to shoot at the monster, but it manages to break her vital point. Meanwhile, in the monitoring room, they are trying to understand what is happening, and one of the members says that the kaijus are coming back to life and even more powerful. With that, the special troop of the defense forces prepares to enter the battlefield, and meanwhile the students hear the emergency alarm telling them to get out of there. But Shinomiya is very proud and refuses to retreat. She thinks that if she leaves there, no one will be able to stop this kaiju. Then she remembers her childhood, when her father always forced her to be better, always perfect for herself and for her deceased mother. The kaiju regenerates and modifies itself, increasing its abilities. It intends to fire an energy ray and the troop cannot arrive in time. Then Kafka appears at the last second, protecting her from the shot that devastates the surrounding buildings. Ikikawa and the other students are trying to deal with the other kaiju. Meanwhile, the protagonist faces the kaiju that fires another energy that he manages to dodge. The monitors detect Kafka's power as one of the most powerful kaijus in history, but as the explosion damaged the drones, they could not send images to the agents. And Kafka says he is out of time, so he will have to defeat the big beast with one punch. And sure enough, his punch destroys half the world and the big beast goes with it. In addition, he manages to save Shinomiya from other smaller kaiju. And Ikikawa appears scolding him again for having become a kaiju in the middle of the test. The special team remembers similar characteristics of the events 3 months ago, and the examiner becomes interested in this case. Shinomiya is sent to the shelter and goes to the hospital while our protagonist stays in the infirmary, and they are visited by Captain Mina, his old friend who came to thank. Shinomiya is visited by the examiner Vice Captain Hoshina, who believed that she had defeated the kaiju. And so as not to betray our protagonist, she assumes that she was the one who defeated the creature. And far from there we see the other humanoid kaiju that had no casualties and it transforms into a human. And his disguise is the rookie of the kaiju cleaning team. And after that, in the academy formation, some of the best students meet and talk among themselves. Soon after that, our protagonist is with Ikikawa. And the two receive an envelope and our protagonist is quite tense when opening this envelope, because he knows that this will be his last chance to unite his destiny with his childhood friend Mina Ashiro. And then he pulls out the paper to see the result. After a while in the academy formation, some of the best students meet and talk among themselves. And Izumo comments to Kaguragi that he imagined he would pass. And he says the same thing about him. They take a look around and see no surprises in the summons. And Shinomiya receives an honor for having defeated the kaiju. She was even chosen as the class representative. and a guy named Iharu Furuhashi ends up bumping into Ikikawa and introduces himself, and he welcomes the guy well, and he asked where the old man named Kafka is, and Captain Mina arrives and says that everyone present there now are special force officers. And Shinomiya ends up thanking Kafka and thinks it's very bad that he's not there. Basically, he was the one who prevented casualties, and that's why she's very upset because he should be in her place. Then suddenly everything is interrupted by Kafka, who arrived late. Shinomiya looks at her old friend with a blank face expression, because even though he scored 0 on the physical test and was disapproved for being last in the test, all the officials agreed with his elimination, except Vice Captain Hoshina. He approves him not for his physical abilities but for using his knowledge and helping the troop. Besides, he's very funny. In addition, he prioritized everyone before him, and that's why he wants him as a member of his platoon. Now returning to the ceremony, Kafka ends up disrespecting Captain Mina during her speech. He said that he will soon be by her side, and that's why she tells him to do 100 push-ups in front of everyone to stop being foolish. Vice Captain Hoshina jokes and laughs his head off, and warns the monitor that he is interested in Kafka because he suspects that he has something to do with the death of the resurrected kaiju. Shinomiya invites the protagonist and Ikikawa to a snack bar. She wants to know what happened for him to become a kaiju. Our protagonist, as he became a kaiju, asks her to promise to keep it a secret. She promises not to tell because he saved her, but if he becomes an evil force for good, she will eliminate him. Then the group meets for regular training. Ikikawa has shown a lot of evolution and Haru is a little envious. He's so competitive that he tries to surpass him. And again, Shinomiya humiliates everyone with an exceptional score. Two of the other students, one with bluish hair Izumo and the one with yellow hair named Kaguragi, are at an equivalent level, challenging each other in a healthy competition. Kafka, on the other hand, only managed to release 1%, celebrating absurdly for that right because he didn't go beyond 0. But the vice captain tells him that if he doesn't evolve enough, he will lose his job. And then during a moment of relaxation, the boys gather and share story. Kaguragi, Haru, Izumo, and Ikikawa are inspired by the captain, and they discover that Kafka was her childhood friend, and ends up forcing him to tell about the promise they made. Then days pass and they have been training hard, evolving their physical and strategic abilities, strengthening their friendship and combat interaction. Our protagonist stays studying late in the library and is seen by Captain Hoshina, who believes that the protagonist wants to steal his position, and inspires him to work hard but says that he will not give up his position easily. It turns out that the two are interrupted by a kaiju alert. The specialized troops evacuate a good part of the population. Captain Mina Ashiro distributes the teams according to their strategic need. This kaiju functions as a colony and creates other very lethal small kaiju. The rookie team stays in the rear as the last line of defense in case something goes wrong. And they are under the orders of the vice captain. The army sends missile volleys to attract the creature to a place where Captain Mina Ashiro can execute her shot that completely eliminates it. But for that, the rookies need to eliminate the small kaijus that try to spread. A more experienced team assumes the protection of the rookies, and a soldier ends up making an unfortunate comment about babysitting them, which irritates Shinomiya a lot, and she shows her skills by destroying several very quickly. In another street, Haru demonstrates great ability, being praised by the veteran, and Ikikawa alone took down several of these creatures, and together they wreak havoc on the enemy's numbers. And Izumo and Kaguragi are not left behind, eliminating some of these monsters in creative ways. Even the platoon leader is amazed by this. Our protagonist realizes that he is falling behind and decides to act on his own. He dismembers the downed kaiju and understands its functioning, and ends up discovering that the weak point of these monsters is just below a hard shell, and also understands how to prevent them from reproducing. He reports all this to the vice captain, who was proud and distributed the information to the others, and now everything becomes easier to destroy these cursed creatures. But then a large explosion happens that scares him. Elsewhere, Captain Mina, with 96% of her power released by the suit, fires at the location indicated by our protagonist, with the intention of eliminating the colossal version of the kaiju, which is exactly like the mini version that spreads. Mina hits 3 powerful shots, one on the shell, creating space, the second on the weak point that our protagonist reported, and the third on the reproductive organ. As a precaution, she finishes with another shot, eliminating most of the residues. Hoshina meets our protagonist on the battlefield and they are attacked by a medium-level kaiju, which the vice captain slices so fast that our protagonist doesn't even see it. And the vice captain receives information that from inside the kaiju, the minis continue to proliferate. Most of the soldiers are already tired but still continue fighting. Ikikawa and Haru eliminate some monsters and encounter the guy from the cleaning team, who's upset because the kaiju's reproductive organs are damaged. And according to him, he was the one who put these organs, and he wants to know who has this knowledge about kaijus. Far from there, our protagonist's cleaning team watches the battle with binoculars. They miss the rookie, but little did they know that this rookie is in the combat area, attacking Haru with a shot very close to the heart. Ikikawa protects him by stopping the bleeding. And right in front of the two, the guy transforms into the humanoid kaiju version, the one who attacked during the final test. He is full of tricks, has abilities to block communicator signals, and shoots at Ikikawa, who barely manages to dodge. And he managed because he saw the preparation of the attack, being able to even save Haru from a blow that could be lethal. Ikikawa distracts the kaiju with his freezing shots, giving Haru time to escape and call for help. But Haru has memories of his training. He wants to become stronger. and he gets upset that he can barely keep up with Ikikawa needing to be saved. The kaiju easily dodges the freezing shots and seems to be studying Ikikawa. In these tests he is doing, he brings extra arms on his back to attack him. But the boy is saved by Haru, who returns. Haru fires an electric shot that prevents the kaiju from moving for a while, gaining time for Ikikawa to get closer. Another advantage is that he also learned to dodge air shots, so Haru paralyzed him for Ikikawa to unleash all the power of his suit. And with that he shoots at the kaiju, which saves itself with a pile of kaiju corpses. Far from there, the troop receives information that Haru and Ikikawa are missing. Our protagonist and Shinomiya decide to go after the last signal of the two. When the humanoid kaiju was about to eliminate the two, our protagonist appears in kaiju form to save them with his powerful punch, tearing off the other kaiju's head. But he manages to recover his own head, and the protagonist puts the two injured in a safe place so he can fight. The enemy starts with his shots, but the protagonist reacts with a strong scream that projects a shield and advances with several punches. But the enemy protects himself with a wall of corpses. The protagonist tears it in half and punches him a few times, almost managing to prevent his regeneration. Then he fires such a strong punch that his body fixes itself to the ground to sustain the power that makes the white kaiju destroy many structures along the way. And then fallen meters away with its core exposed, the creature is now vulnerable. And then our protagonist intends to finish it, but a troop from the defense force appears just in time, which is enough time for the white humanoid kaiju to regenerate and flee. The protagonist distracts the soldiers and escapes through an alley, but is found by Captain Hoshina, who attacks him with his sword with cuts so fast that it does not allow our protagonist to react. He only manages to stay alive. While he is thinking of a way to survive without revealing himself, the vice captain releases his power of 92%. All this while he prepares to fight with his full power. The protagonist is worried about hurting the captain and therefore receives a very serious cut. He struggles to keep up with the captain's speed but realizes that he is on a much higher level. Then his arm is cut off and his core is exposed. But it turns out that he manages to regenerate. However, regeneration consumes a lot of his stamina. Then the vice captain energizes his swords in a double blow, amputating Kafka's leg. Then he hits an attack very close to the core. But the protagonist was anticipating this and ends up changing his body, which destroys one of the swords and throws it away, and takes advantage of this chance to escape. The vice captain is not so strong against larger kaijus, but against smaller kaijus he is unshakable. Then Kafka finds Shinomiya and allows himself to be vulnerable, returning to his human form. But he gets a scolding for almost being discovered and perhaps even killed right. The vice captain and Mina enter a place to talk about kaiju number 8, his way of fighting, but he looks like a human, comparing with the other kaiju that appeared years ago. And soon after they are informed that the white kaiju was detected and looked human. However, on its escape route, the kaiju finds a man driving a car and devours him, taking his form. At this moment, the special troops name him Kaiju number 9 and begin investigation. In the infirmary, Ikikawa wakes up, Kafka and Shinomiya are there, and he thanks him for being saved, but Haru was listening, and he almost made the association that he was Kaiju number 8. The whole team celebrates their first mission at a party organized by Izumo, who is the son of a very rich family. But the drink goes in and the truth comes out. They end up fighting in a healthy way. Even the protagonist calls Kaguragi for an arm wrestle. At a moment of much fun, the vice captain stops everything to make an announcement. Kafka, our protagonist, with his crucial information was promoted, being able to guarantee his job in the corporation. And then the next day he is officially promoted to Captain Mina's office, which makes him very shy. And she remembers the promise they made and says that his promotion was thanks to the vice captain. And she also hopes that he becomes very strong so that they can fight side by side. During the night, our protagonist needs to make a report of what he saw about kaijus number 8 and 9. And in this, he ends up bumping into the vice captain training. And with that, he ends up recreating the fight they had the day before. And the vice captain says that he was training to exterminate kaiju number 8. And with that, he is terrified, right? Kafka respects him because he wants to protect everyone, and promises to do his best. And the vice captain says that he will give him 1% of his expectation. But we end up seeing in the air a bunch of flying kaijus led by a human-sized one completely reddish. And when our protagonist is returning to the camp, he sees fire falling from the sky, destroying the base quickly. The air attack is identified. The vice captain responds as the military responsible since the captain is traveling. Kaijus that look more like dragons fire and fly over the area acting as a pack, which is very common to happen. In realizing this, our protagonist reports to the vice captain that he faced the red kaiju head-on. Kaiju does not waste much time. Upon realizing that the vice captain was the strongest in the base, he makes him his adversary and with a punch destroys windows with impact. The vice captain is fast enough to escape this, and the red kaiju gives a signal to the dragonet. The two return to combat. Both are very fast, but the red kaiju has such a resistant shell that he cannot cut. Meanwhile, the troops fire shots against the dragonets that react with a destructive shot. Kafka warns by radio that he remembered cleaning these creatures. This happened many years ago. Their weak point was on their backs. The battalion leader separates everyone into pairs to facilitate the attack. Izumo and Kaguragi team up to defeat a dragonet. Kaguragi acts as bait, attracting attention, while Izumo goes around with his acrobatic skills. And at the time of the final shot, he is attacked by another dragonet, and they report that these creatures are working together. Shinomiya appears with another option, a quick frontal attack with her new axe. Basically, this huge axe can destroy the armors of the kaiju. The 3rd division gave her this huge axe, precisely because she is the 3rd strongest official in the division. And the kaijus are becoming an increasingly powerful threat. But Shinomiya says that she doesn't like her weapon very much because she thinks it doesn't match her style. The vice captain told her that she can create a shockwave with her axe, and with that she manages to kill one kaiju after another. But little did she expect that there were flying kaiju. But Ikikawa shoots at him with his shots, and as they are freezing, he manages to freeze the creature so that it falls to the ground. And Shinomiya joins forces with him, so that when they fall she smashes them on the ground. Back to the vice captain, who manages to dodge the blows of the red kaiju. The kaiju is having a lot of fun with the fight. The vice captain tries to create an opportunity, but the red one is very fast and punches him, making the vice fly far away. But after an unexpected move that amputated the red kaiju's arm, the vice finally gains time and manages to release his power of 92%. Far from there, a soldier is being attacked by a dragonet, and Kafka transforms only his legs to be able to save him, which makes him look like he used his suit. In a subsequent attack by the creature, it is avoided when Shinomiya appears with her axe. The fight continues and the troops are fighting bravely against the dragonets, inspiring the protagonist to improve his skills. The vice captain and the red one continue the combat. Now the vice captain manages to tear him apart with several cuts, making him into pieces. The creature remains standing and begins a regeneration process, and then returns to the fight. Both are skillful, efficient dodging and powerful blows. The vice captain manages to slice the red one's arm into several pieces, managing to find his core. Then he uses a multiple blow that cuts the red one's body into several parts. But contrary to what he thought the enemy would be defeated, what happens is that the core changes place at the last second. And the red one's regeneration capacity makes him gigantic. Kafka feels the resonance with the red kaiju, even in human form, feeling headaches, and he runs towards the vice captain to fight against the kaiju. The vice captain still continues fighting, but now his blades are not working because his attacks are not effective against the giant kaiju. He thinks of aiming at the core on its back, but he is informed that his suit is about to reach its limit, and suggests that he cancel his maximum release. But he still fights, thinking that he can defeat this kaiju. He tries to grab the kaiju by the back, but suddenly it attacks him, throwing him very far, and his suit mentions that he has reached his limit. His shield protected him from death, but now he wonders how he will defeat the kaiju. He cuts the kaiju, but the kaiju regenerates, and a small kaiju ends up hitting him from behind. At this moment, he has memories of his training with weapons like the katana. His father told him to give up entering the defense forces precisely because he is not good at using other weapons, and said that swords are becoming obsolete. But he decides to join anyway. Then he finally meets Mina Ashiro, who says that he is a specialist in blades. He ends up thinking that she will reject him, but in fact she says that she needs his help, and ends up asking if he wants to join her. Mina Ashiro is specialized in eliminating giant kaijus, but in the fight against smaller ones she is not so good. So she asks him to clear the way for her to shoot at the giant kaiju. The vice captain delivers blows from his various techniques, causing considerable damage to the giant. However, he is caught and crushed in the kaiju's hand. The protagonist is convinced that now is the right moment for him to transform into a kaiju. But before his transformation happens, the red one is hit by a cannon shot from Captain Mina Ashiro. Now safe, he can deliver blows to the creature's heels, while the captain shoots at him. But the vice captain is no longer able to cause so much damage. His cuts are easily regenerated by the kaiju. But to help him, Shinomiya appears with her family-sized axe, and now the two start working together. The vice captain waves the shell and she hits the open wound, which proves to be very effective, allowing the captain's next shot to hit the red one's core squarely. The next shot can be decisive. All troops are directed to take him down, or at least try to gain time. Vice captain puts on a show of blows with his blade, opening blows, forcing the kaiju to force its regeneration in these parts and not in the exposed core on its back. And then the captain takes advantage and shoots at the red one's core. He's hit squarely, making him dismember in all directions. The corporation celebrates its victory, delighting in all its effort. But for a short time, they notice above their heads a large beehive receiving the energies of the dragonets to soon cause a big explosion. Everyone is condemned by this explosion, and now there's nothing to do. But Kafka heads towards this beehive, and the vice captain scolds him, telling him not to go since he can't do anything against it. But he takes a look and realizes better that Kafka is moving at an incredible speed, and he wonders how he can do that. But then it turns out that he transforms into kaiju number 8. And everyone goes into shock. No one believes it's happening. Our protagonist says that now he will disappoint everyone, especially those who were keeping his secrets. But he says that if he doesn't do anything now, everyone will die. So he uses his powers and goes up to the sky, punching the beehive and sending it into space, using all his strength. And then while the bomb goes into space, he falls in free fall, hitting the ground. The beehive explodes very far away, but the impact of the explosion is so great that it can still be felt in the area. And after all this happens, Mina Ashiro approaches Kafka with a team, declaring his arrest. After that, we see a meeting of the High Command deciding about kaiju number 8. They are led by General Isao Shinomiya, our blonde friend's father. Kafka is detained, handcuffed, and tied to a very resistant chair. Mina Ashiro and the vice captain come to carry out his transfer. And even though the protagonist wanted to talk to him, they maintain professionalism. He passes through a corridor full of soldiers to the van that will take him to HQ. Kafka thinks that now it's all over for him, But Ikikawa manifests himself breaking protocol, trusting that he will return to the team. And inside the van alone, Mina and Shinomiya talk. She says that there are no cameras inside. She said that she trusts him and warns that she will do everything to make him return to the battalion. Now with his secret revealed, Kafka is concerned to know if she will accept fighting side by side with a kaiju. And she confirms that she will wait for him to return to fulfill that promise. Outside, the vice captain calls for a salute to our protagonist who saved everyone's lives. He is questioned about what he is doing and he says that he is saluting the captain, but in fact we know it was Kafka. Then our protagonist goes through several tests held in a maritime base. Meanwhile, the other soldiers talk among themselves, remembering how Kafka was a good friend and saved their lives. Shinomiya goes to visit her father, requests that our protagonist be released, but he shows an X-ray showing that even in human form he maintains a core in the place of his heart. And he says that he is no different from the kaiju who killed his mother. But even so, Shinomiya prefers to believe in Kafka's innocence. During a meeting in her office, the captain temporarily separates the most skilled rookies, who are Ikikawa, Haru, Kaguragi, and Izumo. Each of them goes to another division for special training. General Shinomiya visits our protagonist's cell and frees him from his handcuffs only to shoot at him. Instinctively, the protagonist begins a kaiju armor defending himself from the shots. Then the general arms himself with his suit, calling Kafka for a combat. Without much explanation, he uses a giant hand that amputates one of the protagonist's arms. The general delivers so many blows to him that he makes him reveal almost an entire form of his power. The two fight at high speed. And our protagonist does not want to use his power, but in a sequence of super powerful punches, the general forces him to transform into kaiju number 8. And then Kafka can no longer control his body in this state. And he attacks the general with everything, losing control of his action. The general is analyzing the fight according to Kafka's attacks, assessing that he attacks like an irrational beast. Kafka's consciousness does not agree with the attacks. The general is using a suit forged from kaiju number 2. It is as if their special abilities are matched. During a frank exchange, the general is injured but does not abandon the combat. He sends a large electrified energy that is received and makes kaiju number 8 very irritated, retaliating with a violent shot. Internally inside his mind, Kafka knows that if he continues in this way, he will kill the general, and tries to control himself to get out of his internal prison. All this while his kaiju version outside takes over, and ends up grabbing the general by the hand and shaking him as if he were a toy. Kafka is lost in his thoughts and remembers many things from the past, and especially Mina Ashiro's promise. And in a final attack, Kafka manages to control his own body and hits his own chest, finally dominating his action. And he talks to the general and passes out. Council calls Mina Ashiro to report her opinion on Kafka. And even though he knows that they were already friends before, she says that she never made it easy for him, tells how useful he was in the last battle, and how resilient he was in continuing and trying the tests several times. She remembers them as children and finally says that he is trustworthy. But the gentlemen believe that her opinion is invalid because of her friendship with him. In the infirmary, the general visited Kafka and informs him that he was considered a kaiju. However, what is in debate is whether he is an ally or an enemy. The council is very divided. And the general, for some reason, supports and suggests that he show his worth and usefulness to stay alive. The sentence was given, and his friends receive a message and are happy about Kafka's success, and for him not being eliminated. Far from there, in a suburban house, kaiju number 9 is planning its next attack.